All right, so buckle up because we are diving headfirst into the world of Norse mythology.
Oh, fantastic.
We're talking epic tales, gods, monsters, prophecies, the whole shebang, and it all leads to Ragnarok. You know, the big apocalyptic showdown.
Yeah, Ragnarok, the inevitable doom. It's really a cornerstone of Norse mythology, isn't it? This idea that even the gods, even the seemingly all-powerful, are subject to fate.
And that's what makes it so fascinating. Today, we're zeroing in on the big players. Odin, the Allfather, the ultimate seeker of knowledge, and Loki, the infamous trickster.
Right, Odin and Loki. Their relationship is complicated. It's a dance between ambition, prophecy, a whole lot of gray areas. It really makes you question, can anyone, even Odin, truly escape what's fated?
And that's the question, right? Let's start with Odin. This is a god who craved knowledge. Craved it. The dude sacrificed his own eye just for a sip from Mimir's well. We're talking ultimate sacrifice for a glimpse into the future, for knowledge of Ragnarok.
It's brutal, no doubt. But it speaks to how the Norse viewed knowledge. It was power, yes, but it was also a heavy burden. Odin's willingness to endure that kind of pain, that sacrifice, it shows you just how vital wisdom and foresight were to them, even if it meant facing some pretty terrifying truths.
And the image of him hanging from Yggdrasil, the world tree, pierced by a spear. Talk about commitment.
Oh, absolutely. And that image Odin impaled on Yggdrasil, it's not just gruesome, it's deeply symbolic. You got to remember, Yggdrasil connects the 9 realms. It's the center of their cosmos. So his sacrifice there, it emphasizes this interconnectedness of everything, this grand web of fate that even the gods are a part of.
So you've got Odin on this intense, kind of agonizing quest for knowledge, and on the flip side, you've got Loki stirring up trouble, like always. That whole incident with Sif's hair, talk about a prankster.
Right, but here's the thing about Loki's trickery. It often serves a bigger purpose. It's disruptive, sure, but his actions, whether intentionally or not, often end up aligning with Odin's own goals.
Like, for instance, when he basically helps create Thor's hammer. If he hadn't messed with those dwarves, who knows what would have happened? It's like he can't help but cause chaos, even if it benefits Asgard in the end.
That's Loki for you. Unpredictable. Is he an agent of chaos? A pawn of fate? Or maybe both. I think that's what makes him so fascinating. We're always left guessing about his true allegiances. And then you've got Heimdall, ever watchful, always suspicious of Loki's motives.
Which just adds another layer of tension to their whole dynamic, right? And then, bam, the prophecy about Loki's children drops. Everything changes.
Oh, absolutely. That's a game changer. Here you have this prophecy foretelling the downfall of the gods, and it's at the hands of Loki's own flesh and blood. That's got to weigh on Odin, right? How do you fight against an enemy that's practically family? A threat that's tied to your fate?
Especially when you look at these kids, Fenrir, this giant wolf who could swallow the world whole, Jörmungandr, the world serpent encircling Midgard, and then there's Hel, the ruler of the underworld, existing in both life and death. These aren't your average kids.
Not at all. They each embody this different facet of chaos. Fenrir raw, untamed power. Jörmungandr, the vastness, the unpredictable nature of the sea. And Hel, well, she represents the inevitable, that embrace of death that awaits us all. These are forces that even the gods are right to fear.
So Odin, knowing what he's dealing with, he tries to contain them, right? He binds Fenrir, casts Jörmungandr into the sea, banishes Hel to the underworld. But is it enough? Can you really alter fate even as the Allfather?
It's like trying to hold back a tidal wave with a broom. It's a desperate attempt to impose some kind of order on a situation that's spiraling towards chaos, towards this predetermined end. But as we know, fate has a way of getting what it wants.
And here's where things get even more interesting, because you have this backdrop of prophecies, this looming doom, and then boom, the Isarvarnir war kicks off, like adding fuel to a fire that's already raging.
Oh, absolutely. The war between the Isar, the gods of war and wisdom, and the Vanir, the gods of fertility and nature. It's not just some side story. It has huge implications for everything that comes after, especially for Odin and his pursuit of knowledge.
It's all connected, right? So they eventually reach a truce, which seems like a good thing, but there are always consequences. Odin, as a show of good faith, he agrees to exchange hostages with the Vanir. He sends Mimir, the wisest of the Aesir, to their realm as a gesture of peace.
And this is where we see Odin's relentless pursuit of knowledge backfiring, in a sense. Mimir is beheaded by the Vanir, which reminds us that knowledge often comes at a terrible price. It's a harsh lesson.
But Odin, ever the resourceful one, he retrieves Mimir's head.
And using his knowledge of runes and magic, he preserves it.
So now, not only has he sacrificed an eye for knowledge, he's consulting a talking head. Talk about dedication.
It really shows you the lengths to which Odin will go, to avert Ragnarök. He understands that knowledge, even in death, is power. But the question remains, will it be enough?
The war might be over, but you get this feeling, the sense of unease, like something's off, like the calm before the storm, you know?
Exactly. The Aesir's victory, it feels hollow, almost. A victory with consequences they haven't even begun to understand. Because this war, it's just one piece of a much larger, much more terrifying puzzle.
And just when you think things can't get any weirder, this seemingly harmless builder shows up in Asgard, offering to construct a giant wall around their realm. Now, I don't know about you, but in Norse mythology, when something sounds too good to be true,
There's always a catch, and this builder, he's not just any builder, he's a giant in disguise. And his price for building the wall, it's steep. He wants the sun, the moon, and Freya's hand in marriage.
wow. Talk about a high-stakes construction project. What is it about Freya that makes her such a sought-after hostage, even for giants?
Freya is more than just a goddess of love and beauty. She represents fertility, abundance. She embodies this powerful magic known as cedar. To lose her would be to lose a vital part of their world, their very essence.
So the gods are backed into a corner. They need the wall, but the builder's demands are insane. What do?
They make a deal, a very risky deal. If the builder can finish the wall within one winter, he gets what he asked for. It seems impossible, right? But this builder, he has a secret weapon, his stallion, who is incredibly strong and fast.
Oh, I see where this is going. Enter Loki and his own brand of chaos. He can't just let Asgard lose Freya, the sun, and the moon, can he?
Of course not. Loki, ever the pragmatist, hatches a plan.
Hmm.
He transforms himself into a mare, a female horse, to distract the stallion, ensuring the builder misses his deadline.
Classic Loki. Always one step ahead, even if that step involves shape-shifting into a horse.
Exactly. It highlights his role as this wild card, this chaotic element that can disrupt even the grandest designs. His actions, even those driven by self-preservation, have a ripple effect.
They might have avoided one disaster, but it feels like they're just delaying the inevitable.
Especially since they now have a very angry giant on their hands. And the prophecy about Loki's children is still looming over everything. It's like a dark cloud they can't outrun.
And Odin, for all his power, for all his knowledge, it seems like he's just as bound to these threads of destiny as everyone else.
Which brings us back to that central question. Can anyone, even the Allfather, truly defy fate?
I think the answer might be more complicated than we realize.
And as we delve deeper, as we explore the events that directly lead to Ragnarök, we'll uncover just how complex, how tragic this dance between fate and free will truly is.
So it's like this constant tension, right? You've got these prophecies hanging over everything, these looming threats. And then there's Loki, right in the thick of it, sometimes helping, sometimes hindering. It makes you wonder, does he even have a plan? Or is he just winging it?
That's the million-rune question, isn't it? Is Loki intentionally steering things towards Ragnarök? Or is he just, by his very nature, a chaotic force? Maybe he doesn't even know the answer himself.
And through it all, you have Odin trying to stay one step ahead, trying to outmaneuver fate itself. But is that even possible?
It's a particularly tragic position, Odin's. He can see the threads of fate, but no matter how much knowledge he gathers, he can't seem to break free from them. It's like the more aware you become, the more you realize the limits of your own control.
And we haven't even gotten to the kids yet. Fenrir, Jormungandr, Hel, each one a walking, slithering, or in Hel's case, ruling embodiment of chaos. We talk about Odin trying to contain them, but is that even possible in the long run?
It really highlights the Aesir's struggle to reconcile their desire for order with these untamable forces they're trying to suppress. I mean, binding Fenrir, throwing Jormungandr into the sea, banishing Hel. These are desperate attempts to impose their will, but you have to wonder, are they just delaying the inevitable?
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken bone, right? Maybe it helps in the short term, but...
Exactly. And it makes you think, how much agency do we really have when it comes to these seemingly predetermined events? Are the gods just buying time? Or is there actually a chance, a glimmer of hope, that they can change their destiny?
One thing that always strikes me about the Aesir is their emphasis on oath, on keeping your word, which makes Loki's constant betrayal sting even more.
Oaths are fundamental to the Norse concept of order. They represent a binding contract, this commitment to maintaining balance. And Loki, by constantly testing those boundaries, breaking those oaths, he introduces this instability. It's like he's chipping away at the very foundations of their world.
Even with something as seemingly small as Sif's hair, right? I mean, yeah, he gets her new hair, but the damage is done. The trust is broken. It feels like this larger commentary on the fragility of relationships, even among gods.
I agree. It shows how even well-intentioned actions can have unforeseen and sometimes irreversible consequences. It's like watching someone dismantle a house from the inside out, even as they claim to be making repairs.
And it's not just the gods who have to deal with Loki's schemes. Remember when that giant Thrym steals Thor's hammer? Talk about adding insult to injury.
Oh, Thrym. He really thought he could just waltz in and take Mjolnir for himself. That whole episode just goes to show you how far the Aesir are willing to go to maintain their power, even if it means resorting to some pretty unconventional tactics.
Thor dressed up as a bride. That image never gets old.
It's a fantastic example of how fluid identity can be in Norse mythology. Here you have Thor, the god of thunder, known for his strength and masculinity, embracing a traditionally feminine role to get his weapon back. It's a reminder that things aren't always as they seem.
And that maybe we shouldn't judge a god by his wedding dress. But speaking of appearances and deceptions, let's circle back to Mimir's head for a second. It's such a powerful image, Odin carrying around this severed head, seeking its counsel. What's the takeaway there?
It's a potent symbol of the sacrifices we make in pursuit of knowledge, wouldn't you say, and the enduring power of wisdom, even beyond death.
We keep coming back to this idea of knowledge coming at a price. It seems like Odin's constantly paying that price, in one way or another.
Absolutely. He loses an eye, he carries the weight of Mimir's severed head, a constant reminder of past conflicts and the ever-present threat to Asgard's existence. Odin's burden isn't just knowledge, it's the weight of responsibility that comes with it.
And with all that he knows, with all his power, there's still this underlying sense of unease. Like, despite the truces, despite the walls they build, something wicked this way comes.
Because it is. We have to remember, Ragnarök is always there, looming over everything. It colors every action, every decision, reminding us that this story is hurtling towards a cataclysmic climax.
And that's where Kvasir comes in, right? You can't talk about knowledge in Norse mythology without talking about mead made from the blood of a god.
Ah, yes, Kvasir. Born from the combined saliva of the Aesir and Vanir, he embodies their shared wisdom, only to be brutally murdered for it. It's a stark reminder that knowledge is a double-edged sword. It can illuminate, but it can also be a source of immense conflict.
And the dwarves mixing his blood with honey to create this mead that grants poetic inspiration, wisdom. I mean, that's pretty hardcore even for Norse mythology.
The creation and consumption of this mead, this powerful elixir of knowledge, becomes yet another thread woven into the tapestry of Ragnarök. It highlights how even things that seem inherently good, like wisdom and creativity, can be twisted, corrupted.
Okay, yeah, corrupted is a good word for it. And this mead, born from such a brutal act, it eventually ends up in Odin's hands, right?
It does, and it speaks to a larger theme. The lengths to which the gods will go in their pursuit of knowledge, even if it means benefiting from a terrible act. It muddies the waters, wouldn't you say? Makes us question their methods, their motives.
It's like they're trapped in this vicious cycle. They crave knowledge to prevent Ragnarök, but the pursuit of that knowledge often pushes them closer to the brink. It makes you wonder, is there any stopping it? Can this cycle be broken?
That's the million-rune question, isn't it? Is Ragnarök a fixed point in time, an unavoidable catastrophe? Or do the choices of gods and mortals actually matter? Can they alter the course of destiny?
It's not something you typically think about when you talk about mythology, free will versus fate.
And yet it's a recurring theme. We see it in Odin's pursuit of knowledge, in Loki's chaotic actions, in the Aesir's attempts to contain the forces of destruction. They're all grappling with it, each in their own way.
It's almost like they're characters in a play, knowing the ending, but desperately hoping they can improvise a different outcome. And just when you think they might find a way out, Mimir's head delivers the final blow, that prophecy, the one that changes everything. Loki's kids are going to bring down the 9 realms.
It's the confirmation Odin both craved and dreaded. Imagine knowing that your sworn brother, your friend, is fated to play a key role in your destruction, that the very beings born from him will be your undoing.
It's heartbreaking. And it makes you question everything that came before. Were they ever truly friends? Was their relationship always doomed from the start?
It exposes that tragic undercurrent that runs through their story, the realization that their fates are irrevocably intertwined. It's enough to make even the most devoted believer question the nature of free will.
So here we are, facing the end of all things, the ultimate battle, the twilight of the gods. It's heavy stuff.
It is. But it's also what makes the lead-up to Ragnarök so compelling. It forces us to confront those universal questions. How do we face the inevitable? What choices do we make when it seems like all hope is lost?
I don't know about you, but I think I need a moment to process all of this.
Don't we all? Because Ragnarok isn't just about the end of the world. It's about what we choose to do with the time we have left.
Okay, well, on that cheery note, when we come back, we're diving headfirst into the main event, Ragnarok.
Get ready for the final showdown. We'll explore the key players, the epic battles, the heartbreaking losses, and the surprising possibility of hope and renewal that rises from the ashes.
Okay, so we've covered the prophecies, the betrayals, that creeping sense of dread. It's time to face the music. Let's talk about Ragnarok. What does the end of the world actually look like in Norse mythology?
Imagine this: a cosmic tapestry, woven with the threads of fate, unraveling before your eyes. The boundaries between realms, gone. The sun and moon, devoured by Loki's monstrous children, plunging the 9 realms into this never-ending darkness. It's not just an ending, it's a complete and total unraveling of existence as they know it.
And I thought those long winter nights were rough. But after everything we've discussed, it all feels kind of inevitable, doesn't it? Like trying to hold back a tidal wave.
It really does. The imagery in the myths really emphasizes this sense of unstoppable destruction. You got the earth trembling, ripped apart by earthquakes. Jormungandr, the world serpent, rises from the depths, spitting venom, churning the seas into a raging frenzy. It's nature itself, unleashed.
Talk about an epic storm surge. And as if things couldn't get any worse, Surtur shows up, the ultimate fire giant, leading his fiery legion across Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge. Isn't Heimdall supposed to be guarding that thing? What happened there?
He is, and as the bridge crumbles beneath Surtur's army, Heimdall, he sounds the horn, Gaji Jallarhorn. Imagine this sound echoing across all 9 realms, a desperate final call to arms, summoning the heroes of Valhalla to Odin's side for one last stand.
That's a battle I would want to see. From a very safe distance, of course. Gods clashing with giants, monsters against heroes, the fate of everything hanging in the balance.
And at the heart of it all, amidst this cosmic maelstrom, stand Odin and Loki. This is it. Their final confrontation, the culmination of a story that's been brewing since the beginning.
So what happens? Do they finally have it out? I mean, is it an epic showdown for the ages?
It's more tragic than a showdown, to be honest. Odin, armed with his spear, Gungnir, he knows he's facing his doom in the form of Fenrir, the monstrous wolf, and he fights knowing that his fate, like so many others, is already sealed.
That's a lot to process, to know you're going to fall, even as the Allfather. It makes you wonder, what's the point of fighting, of even trying, if everything is already decided?
That's the question that hangs over Ragnarok, isn't it? Even in the face of inevitable defeat, the Aesir choose to fight. They choose courage over despair, action over resignation. Their defiance in itself is a powerful statement.
It's a powerful message for us, too. Even when facing the end, our choices still matter. But it can't just end there, right? Total annihilation. That's pretty bleak, even for Norse mythology.
Ragnarok is about endings, yes, but it's also about beginnings. From the ashes of destruction, a new world emerges. Imagine a world reborn, green and vibrant. Baldur, the god of light, and Hodor, the blind god, they return from the underworld, representing this return to balance, this cosmic reset.
So even in this ultimate destruction, there's a glimmer of hope, this spark of renewal. It's a reminder that even after the darkest night, the sun will rise again.
Exactly. Yeah. 2 humans, Lifnlifthrazir, they emerge from Yggdrasil's protected branches. They are the seeds of this new beginning. Their survival speaks to the cyclical nature of existence, that even in death, there's the promise of renewal.
Wow. So it's not just a story about the end of the world, but a story about rebirth, about starting over. There's a certain beauty in that, I think.
It reminds us that endings aren't always finite. They can also be opportunities for growth, for change, for something entirely new to emerge.
So we've journeyed from the creation myths to the end of days and back again. We've explored the complexities of Odin and Loki, the weight of prophecy, the looming threat of Ragnarok. It's been a wild ride, to say the least. Any final thoughts for our listeners?
The myths, they offer a lens through which we can examine our own lives. They remind us that even in a world filled with uncertainty, our choices have meaning. We can face our fears with courage, find hope in the face of despair, and choose action, even when faced with the seemingly inevitable. The stories we tell ourselves, they matter. And sometimes, exploring the myths of other cultures can help us understand our own a little better.
And on that note, we wrap up our deep dive into the world of Norse mythology. We hope you've enjoyed exploring these stories with us. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep exploring, and remember sometimes the most profound truths can be found in the most unexpected places.